What role does AI play in Opendoor's data strategy? It's a public kind of fact that our kind of CEO Kaz, he announced default to AI strategy. AI by default needs like clean data and context, so continue to invest in more like cleaner data. Helpful to investing in the foundations. And while we do that, we're also kind of cutting costs where possible to accommodate for the higher cost from a lot of the AI stuff. You just wrote a blog post about it, talking about the different layers. Can you talk about those 4 intelligence layers that you are referring to in your post around? The first one is we look at the property and all of the various information that we can get about that. Second component of the data intelligence layer is what we call comps. Third, we look at kind of risk and market signals. And last but not the least, we have a bunch of things around 250K transactions, 20 plus external sources, our proprietary like internal data sets that we have fed AI. So key infra decisions you have to make again, in order to support those use cases based on the stack. When I joined, we were on a fragmented stack. We cut down our high severity events by at least a factor of like 50%, so half of what we see in the case. And then we have brought down the overall cost of the Fair platform fairly significantly as well, while improving the system because you can just get that by eliminating a duplicated kind of tech stacks. I remember waking up middle of the night multiple times. Once in a while, we do that because, systems break, but not as they used to. So the biggest kind of change from an architecture standpoint that we've made is centralized a lot of those kind of things, and now you have like a standard stack. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of Data Innovators. Paras is a fellow of the Institute of Analytics, a data science and AI researcher, an active blogger with more than, 600 posts now and 2 million reads, I think. So Paras, thanks for joining me today.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for kind of invite and excited to speak with you.
Amazing. Let's dive right in. So, you worked in a very different and varied industries throughout your career, from consulting through finance, through healthcare, e-commerce, now real estate. Would love to hear about the story, the journey, what shaped those moves.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been always curious about kind of data and how that like transforms businesses. Background is I did my kind of graduate studies in data mining before. Now it's called data science, but it's kind of mining when I did it. So I've always been curious about how that can be applied for better kind of decisioning. So for me, consulting and kind of finance kind of setups got me started. That's where I kind of got my start. I was lucky enough to be surrounded in my first job when I was doing consulting by book authors and conference speakers. I couldn't kind of ask for like a better start than that because it kind of gave me a solid foundation. And from that point on, I basically kind of worked in finance, healthcare. I wanted to work in tech, and Amazon, of course, like fits the bill for that. So I got a chance to work there for 5 years. And then most recently, for the past 3 years, I've been at Opendoor. It's kind of the largest asset class that we have. And the way I think of it is kind of one of the most fascinating unstructured data that we have access to. All of it is, for the most part, public data set. And so being able to kind of leverage that and build better products for our customers is super exciting. And so it's a really fun and hard problem and a very valuable problem that we are solving right now for our customers.
Yeah, and you write a lot about it and how data, I think, shapes that type of industry and consumers' ability to extract value, which is great. And I think we'll dive into that in just a little bit. But, you start touching it. So what do you guys do at Opendoor? What is your team responsible for? Why is it important?
And so what's unique about Opendoor is that all of our data that we kind of ingest is fairly fragmented. There are a lot of different data sources. So the way it works is that MLS, which is the multiple listing services where kind of all of the real estate transactions happen, it's fairly fragmented kind of ecosystem. So you're depending on the city or the county or the zip codes that you're looking at, you kind of various data kind of providers for those. On top of that, no two homes are alike. There are usually kind of details that are super important. We have multiple kind of third-party data sources that enhances the data set, so you can merge all of that together. On top of that, we of course have our proprietary kind of data sets. We have access to millions of interior home photos that no one else has access to. So, take all of that. And then for the most part, for our homeowners, we want to make it as quick as possible or make it as kind of worthy as possible. As we look at all of those various data points, traditionally, if you think of like appraisal kind of systems, most of those systems look at few data points, like your bedroom, bathroom, square footage, things like that. Versus the system that we have built looks at 500 plus kind of data points. And so it's kind of a fairly exhaustive kind of system that does all of the heavy lifting that is needed to get that valuation correct and essentially earn the trust of our customers because they are doing one of their largest transactions that they could with our platform.
Yeah, and you touched on a bunch of different principles. I think that it goes a long way. And I think kind of the rich context and multi-layers of data that you guys are looking at in your models, obviously the output should be more accurate, more valuable to the customer than looking at it way more superficially. You just wrote a blog post about it, talking about the different layers. Can you talk about those 4 intelligence layers that you're referring to in your post around how do you think about those data points and getting them together into your models?
Absolutely. So you kind of 4 layers of data intelligence. The first one is we look at the property and all of the various information that we can get about the property. So like not just your bed, bath, and bathroom, that's like your foundation, but we look at things like what's your like kitchen countertop, for example. Is there like a slope? Is there like noise? What does like your backyard look like? What's the condition of the various like appliances? You can imagine a bunch of features. So there's about one component which is just the specific like property insight.
And is that based on images or what is the data source for this? If you can share.
Yeah, all of the modalities. I imagine like text, images, video, even like so all modalities that we can get access to, but primarily it's like text and image. So that's how we kind of gather property kind of insights. Second component of the data insights layer is what we call comps, so comparables based kind of insights. A lot of home valuations is driven by comparables, so your nearby homes and what they sold for. And while no homes are alike, we can find similar homes that we can kind of basically glean supply demand signals about. So that another kind of layer of it looking at comps as well. Third, we look at kind of risk and market signals. So those are things such as we know essentially what's happening in the market. And MLS makes it much easier than other industries to look at what's happening in the market. Because unlike an e-commerce kind of business where if you run an e-commerce business, you don't know what your competitor is selling or where are customers going. In MLS, for the most part, most of it is public information. So we can kind of look at what's happening in the market and we can glean, hey, this market is slowing down or this market is kind of ramping up. We can take those insights and pass those kind of if benefits then to our customers. So that's kind of the third bucket. And last but not the least, we have a bunch of things around 250K transactions, 20 plus external sources, our proprietary like internal data sets that we have fed AI. So AI has come up with its own kind of patterns and trends that we have seen over time through this database that is like the fourth layer that it layers in and says, hey, these are like the tweaks that I'm doing to make the valuation here better. Those are the 4 different layers that feed into our data foundations. And then of course our systems sit on top of it that'll do home valuations for our customers.
So layering on top of that, what's unique about real estate, Opendoor versus the other industries that you worked in from an analytical work perspective, architectural, data perspective, user perspective of how they engage and use the product?
Absolutely. So let's compare Opendoor and Amazon. So first is that we're not selling like a $100 product or a $50 product. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of asset. So the trust is kind of paramount to make sure we get kind of that correct. If we kind of underprice the asset or overprice the asset, both of those scenarios are bad. So we just get it exactly right. That's one. Second, from like a data nerd perspective, Amazon was essentially like a lots of data volume. We have millions of transactions happening through our systems. And so it's like a big data problem, like a classic like big data problem. Whereas Opendoor data, while we have lots of data, it is fundamentally what I call a wide data problem. Because for each asset, you have multiple features. Like I mentioned, 500 plus kind of things that we look at. We don't have 500 plus like features for an e-commerce product, but we do for Opendoor. So we kind of are in a wide data problem. And then we have to get that right. And there's not that much like research or literature on wide data. There's a lot of literature on big data, how to solve for volume, how to solve for kind of issues if you run into big data. And we look at technologies that have been set up. A lot of the technologies over the past like 20 years solved for the volume. The wide data problem presents its like own nuances, how you set up your ML that looks at all the features. There's like novel techniques we have to apply to make sure that we can deal with things like null values, or imagine that being the case for multiple different fields. How do you kind of impute some of those? How do you kind of resolve duplicate kind of information that you may see, like data points that don't like match with each other? What's like the right? We come up with things like hierarchical kind of nature of which data source we trust first or other, and it could depending on the feature that we're looking for. So those are the two main things that make kind of Opendoor data unique. One is like trust is more important than like the value of the asset, and second, it's a wide data problem, which is a big data problem that requires it's like novel approaches that there's not enough of that in the industry. That so we go down like the novel paths and figure out.
So yeah, you have to figure out your own path, I guess. So relating to that, from what you can share, what is your data platform architecture looks like to support these type of use cases and specific, unique elements for Opendoor?
Yeah, so our technology stack isn't kind of fairly differentiated. What we do with technology is differentiated. So our kind of stack is fairly standard, like a Snowflake, your Databricks, QuickSet, which is our like BI layer. But what I do with the stack is differentiated because the business logic is where kind of the thing is, but our tech stack is kind of fairly standard. And we also like a AWS shop, so we use like AWS heavily as well.
So if I take it to the next level, maybe what key infra decisions did you have to make, again, in order to support those use cases based on the stack?
So before getting on this like more standardized stack, when I had joined, we were on a fragmented stack, and there's a function how the org was set up too. So we were like, this is 3.5 years ago. The teams were fragmented, so each team's data teams were empowered to kind of create their own stack. So you can imagine your data compute, your storage, your data visualization, and each team are creating their own stacks and then their own code repo, and then various different things are fragmented. So the biggest kind of change from an architecture standpoint that we've made is centralized a lot of those kind of things, and now you have like a standard stack. So something as simple as we used to have combination of like R code and Python code. Now it's all Python, so we migrated off. We add things such as different kind of Airflow, which is like a data kind of scheduler kind of thing. We had multiple instances of Airflow. Now it's kind of like just two, basically, just so that we can manage it correctly. And we also moved it to like a cloud, essentially Amazon's MWA offering, versus like us trying to manage all of the infra, which was just creating a lot of high severity events. So just cutting the laser focusing on things that we can uniquely add value in, which is the business logic, simplifying our tech stack, consolidating that. And it's mostly a function of like the broader org culture. We moved away from like fragmented data teams to a centralized data team. And then on the back of that, the data architecture essentially followed, where we have this centralized data stack, centralized kind of standard data tools, eliminates a bunch of wastes from the system. And while we are central, we are still embedded in various business domains, so we don't lose that. So that's like the key part, which is centralization doesn't mean that we don't partner effectively. That is still super important. So it's centralization with like embedded structure that allows us to effectively partner with teams to move fast while making sure that our tech stack is like streamlined. And this has helped us like we used to get pages, like I remember waking up middle of the night multiple times. Once in a while, we do that because, systems break, but not as I used to. We cut down our high severity events by at least a factor of like 50%, so half of what used to be the case. And then we have brought down the overall cost of the Fair platform fairly significantly as well, while improving the system, because you can just get that by eliminating duplicated kind of tech stacks.
Yeah, no, those are great points. And I think it's common themes that we see, especially today across the industry, where the leading teams are unifying, standardizing infra as much as possible, and really making sure that the team focuses on what's core to the business. And I think the way that you frame it, and you wrote a lot in your post around how do you get the team closer to the business and making sure that you're always on top of the business problem, not just the tech behind you. I think critical, because at the end of the day, that's what differentiates you. That's what gives you the edge, right? That's where your competitive advantage is, and making sure that you're not focusing on the stuff that other folks have solved and stuff that have already been there in the market, and making sure that you bring the innovation and use cases to the business, I think is critical. So kudos to you guys, and it sounds like great achievement with both reliability and cost savings. So great work there. So it sounds like you've done a lot of work so far in the past 3.5 years. What are some of the gaps or challenges that you are tackling today that you're still facing?
The biggest one and the classic one is balancing speed and quality. So balancing innovation with like stability of our systems. We are going very fast. We recently hired kind of new leadership in place, super excited about the momentum that we have. And to just continue to kind of balance stability. There's a lot of also excitement around AI, which also comes with its own like sort of innovations that we want to kind of do. And so while we lean into more of those, we want to make sure the foundations is strong, continue to deliver value. So we continue to deliver, like focus on our foundations, which is kind of quality, lineage, all of context is passed to the AI agents, things like that, while simultaneously exploring transformative kind of AI things. So recently, kind of my team launched voice AI bot that we're very excited by, which uses our internal data to kind of help customers move through our like experience and make it more like better for them. So this is an example of it. And we balance our kind of data stack while innovating on newer things that would be net new frontier for us.
So you brought it up, so I'm going to ask about it. So AI, Ernie, I think you mentioned the bot that you guys just released. What role does AI play in Opendoor's data strategy? How do you guys think about it go forward?
Yeah, it plays a very critical role. But just to be very verbose, pre-AI, which was essentially like the ML stacks, Opendoor's kind of founded on the ML stack. It is like core to Opendoor's like founding kind of journey.
Traditional AI, not Gen AI.
Yeah. With the traditional kind of ML AI, all of that. And now with Gen AI, it helps us like supercharge a lot of our workflows. It opens up like new possibilities that wasn't kind of possible. So for example, this voice stuff that you're talking about, I played with chatbots like a couple of years ago. They were not at the level at which they are. The technology exponentially kind of and unlocking use cases that just weren't possible. Like 2 years ago, I would not put this in production. I would not trust an AI chatbot to be able to unlock our customers. And to be clear, we tried it 2 years ago, and like those came out, and quickly found out that adding friction, that adding value. But now, with this technology, we are actively trying all of this in the wild, completely leaned in. It's a public kind of fact that our kind of CEO of Cars, he announced default to AI strategy. And so by default, the entire company is leaned in, and we kind of use AI as a means to see whatever we can supercharge for our customers. And so super excited.
So how do you evaluate AI projects or initiatives, within the org? Obviously, every aspect of the world, from engineering all the way to the, again, user-facing features, is all kind of being disrupted right now. How do you think about it? How do you evaluate it? Where do you focus your team's time?
Yeah, there are a few areas. So like first, if I give you a bottom-up example of this voice AI agent, it is complementary to what the team is already doing. Our human kind of capacity and the sales force that we have at our disposal just cannot keep up with the lead volume that we have. And so AI is essentially complementing and adding to our like capabilities where we can kind of reach out to as many customers as possible and help them through the home selling journey and make it as simple for them as possible. Beyond that, though, I like to think of like AI projects as kind of through three kind of angles. So one, is it kind of feasible? So like in the voice AI case, 2 years ago, the answer was no. now latest models, they are really good. So now it's going to become feasible. Is it viable? So like, does the kind of the cost or like the cost to build, is it kind of viable? Does it move the metrics that matter? Like not just launch AI for the sake of launching it. We look at like how would it help our customers? How would it move the metrics that kind of matter? And last but not the least, from a customer perspective, is it something that is adding net new value? I don't add AI, just that doesn't like our customers don't adopt it or don't trust it. And so through feasibility, viability, desirability, we look at kind of that and say, okay, let's stack rank all of our projects. And then a lot of the things, there's like a wide confidence interval on what the outcomes and things would be. So we just lean heavily into experimentation. Say, okay, we don't need to kind of worry about what would that impact look like at 100% scale. But if we believe there's feasibility, viability, desirability, then let's start an experiment. It could be as simple as doing like a 10-90 test, or like 10% of our volume would get that needs to be and 90% won't. And then we quickly learn what happens through like experimentation techniques. And then if it worked, we move on. If it didn't, then we roll back. And by the way, not all of the things work. If all of the things work, but we're not like taking big swing.
You're not pushing hard enough.
Exactly. So we wouldn't like, hey, we're really excited about it. It didn't work, and that's okay. Then we pull back and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, you want to get out of your comfort zone and push the envelope a little bit. Love that. So, you talked earlier about the architectural decision that you've made, the infrastructure decision that you made to support what Open was doing for the past 3 years, and the traditional AI, ML aspect of it, and a lot of it I think is organizational as well with centralization. What have you guys changed or changing now from an architectural or infrastructure perspective to support those AI initiatives? Is there anything that's changing here?
AI by default needs like clean data and context. So we continue to invest in more like cleaner data, also making passive so that AI can be kind of more helpful. So investing in the foundations is important before, it's even more important now. And while we do that, we're also kind of cutting costs where possible to accommodate for the higher costs from a lot of the AI stuff. So higher compute costs. So kind of going back to the foundations of making sure that we cut costs wherever there's like essentially waste, that has become even more important. And then is always important, will be even more important to accommodate kind of more and more costs that coming through kind of AI products. And then on top of that, just our foundations on data quality, lineage, context, making sure that we, another kind of big change that we make is AI models require fundamentally different QAing capabilities. So like in the AI parlance, it'll be evaluations or evals that we need to run to make sure that those things are performing as expected. So for a voice AI one, we have on top of our agent that essentially does evals to say, okay, these are all the transcripts. So when a voice AI call happens, we have transcripts for the customer. So we evaluate that to make sure the AI didn't kind of go off guardrails, and make sure that here the guardrails ensure that all of those transcripts kind of post-call adhere to that. And wherever it doesn't, we kind of feed it back to the primary agent and say, hey, learn from all this like mistakes that you did. Next time, don't make those mistakes. So the three things that are kind of important, just going back to the foundations, add more like data quality, context, reduce cost for like waste, that is even more important. And then three, just kind of eval platform that we didn't have before. Now we add that back.
So you touched on those points a few times. So I assume they're important: quality, governance, lineage, cost. You mentioned your cloud, very kind of modern cloud platform today. In the world of cloud infra, how do you think about capacity constraints, performance, how those goes together? Kind of how do you think about KPIs and essentially optimizing? You mentioned compute right now. How do you think about those things?
There's three different dimensions. So one, cost is kind of fairly straightforward to kind of measure. Second, the quality of the models and input into the outcomes that we see. So the evals and stuff that we set up would be essentially inputs. And then the output would be, hey, did it move kind of the needle for the business? So going back to the feasibility, viability, desirability, that's like how we greenlight a project. But we then are kind of monitoring the project, and it'll be about, okay, what was like the ROI, what was the cost, and what did the customer experience essentially move the needle or not? So being able to kind of get those three signals is important to make sure we close the feedback loop, to always kind of build things that are more feasible, more viable, more desirable for our customers.
And is there something that you guys integrate into the day-to-day work of engineers on how they think about those things, how they think about reliability, how they think about cost? Is it something that's pronounced, or just something that, you come back by the end of the month and say something, here is how the metric change, or, those were the big incidents that happened this month?
So we have daily cadence on all of the key metrics. So we look at and inspect things daily. And of course, if something fails, then there's like an alert that goes out, and pages are on call who will take a look at like something broke. So they get paged and go fix it. So data quality alerts are like, we used to get them before too, but now we get more of them because we kind of created more production use cases. So it's like a daily cadence of key alerts that go out that will kind of help us catch those things. Of course, we can do more here, but the cadence is like daily.
And, a question I like to ask folks who lead those type of initiatives is, sometimes there's a lot of foundational work that you need to do in order to even be in a good place for you to start delivering business value. Oftentimes those are very infrastructural kind of initiatives and efforts that need to be done, but very hard to explain sometimes to business leaders, executives, folks that want to see the business outcome kind of very, very fast. How are you thinking about that? How do you get this foundational buy-in from leadership, the organization, counterparts, product, business, to take those steps and build the right foundation?
Yeah, a couple of things. So like one, the culture and the leadership surrounding you needs to kind of meet you in the middle. In other words, like they would need to have like experiences from the past where by default you're not swimming against the current. So that's like, if by default your leadership isn't like leaned in, or they are not like tech focused, then it's become harder. So one of the things about Opendoor that's kind of really good, and that's like a tailwind for my team, is that the leadership deeply understands like the product, the tech, they're in the details. And so that's like makes culturally being able to do these things much easier than at like other places. And even at Amazon, we used to have like central investments and teams that provided those foundation kind of pieces. So both of the last two companies I worked with, I've been fortunate that the culture was very like tech focused, and folks understand kind of some of those. But beyond that, once like, of course, that doesn't mean there's no scrutiny, right? Like that, like beyond that, one of the things that I do is I don't frame things in terms of like technology. I frame things in terms of like outcomes. We need like X, Y, and Z to happen. This is kind of where we're going as an organization. What are like the inputs that we can do to achieve those? So for example, we can always like launch POCs, which we can at like a lower data quality is okay because it's a POC, smaller scale kind of customers. We know what the landmines are, so we can kind of like create guardrails in a static or a hard-coded way, and then just kind of get the POC off the ground and get that up and running. But at scale, it'll usually need all of those like tech debt to be paid off to scale it. And so I don't start with saying, hey, we need to do X, Y, Z things at scale. I'd say, okay, this cannot run the POC, make sure this is kind of valuable. We can hard code and move around the landmines. Once the value is proven, then as we part of like scaling, we'll start kind of paying off that tech debt that we incurred or data debt that we incurred, so that we scale kind of the thing. And then after a certain point, there's usually kind of the law of kind of those things kind of catch up to you. So you scale, you can't scale a system that is like has a lot of debt. You can have to find that balance, the system being stable so that you can scale. You can't kind of hard code our way through all of the nuances. There'll be new things that we'll find. And so that's how I think of it. Start with like POC, start with showing value, frame things in terms of like the outcomes, and then tie back technology to it. And I'm in a slightly unique case because I don't just run data science, I also run data engineering. Or said differently, I don't just run data engineering, I also run data science. So I'm very familiar with like the business metrics. Those are the metrics I've helped define. And so all of the data engineering tasks essentially added up to that as well. So it makes it easier for me to have an end-to-end view. But I'm very aware that if you're just running a data engineering team, then that could be a challenge because you're not plugged into, at least for me, because I run both of those teams, makes it fairly easy. I can clearly see the end-to-end kind of tying from what business cares about and how engineering fits into that. Right?
So if I distill it down, cut it into smaller chunks, start with POCs, showcase the value first, make the workarounds to make it work fast. And then if the value is there, we can kind of start building the foundation to support of it. So again, you just touched on your team. multidisciplinary team, data science, analytics, engineering, all the way from the business down to the infrastructure. Going into 2026, what's top of mind, key priorities, key things that you guys are looking to do?
We are kind of innovating continuously. Also keeping pace with what we need to do for our customers. That's kind of first and foremost. And then also fully leaned into kind of AI to try out new things. It's like an exponential kind of curve for that. So both of those things are so keep moving fast, keep innovating, keep kind of lifting in kind of the people that we have in the team. And fundamentally, if I put my people leader hat for a second, if I kind of take care of the people and make sure that they are leaned in, they're able to move fast, they're kind of adopt AI, all of that things, and they're able to grow in their career, their impact on all of those kind of essentially falls in place as well. And so I focus a lot on also kind of making sure that we are invested in our people as well, who can kind of apply all of their skills to keep kind of building products for our customers.
I love that because I just wanted to actually change gear to that. So I appreciate you touching on it. So, you write a lot in addition to the technical data science, engineering topics. You write a lot about the softer skills, career progression, talent. Maybe let's start with the earlier career folks. What's the most common, and you do a lot of mentoring of those kind of folks in their early side of their career, kind of giving back to the community. What's the most common pitfalls that you see at their early career, and kind of the one advice that you'll give them in order to try to avoid it?
I think, and I also did that when I was kind of in my early stage career, which is I would identify myself as someone who knew a tool X, Y, or Z. So I'll be like, hey, I am a AWS certified solution architect, for example, and then that will become the identity. But it's less about that, more about continue kind of growing in your career. It'll be more about the value that you deliver. It's even more truer than now than in the past, because all of these tools are like shifting. Architectures are shifting way faster than it used to when I started. So it would be even more important to focus on the outcomes and the problems that you're solving, and tools are just like a means to an end to help you solve those. Especially with AI, like 3 years ago, like the reference architectures that I'm looking at in data, and if I kind of try to adopt that, I'm like ancient dinosaur already. And so it's not about the tools. It's about like what you can do with the tools, how you can kind of like solve the problems, and the value that you've added is even more powerful than before, especially the rate of change that we have. Second is it's not that common thing, but building in public, if you can do it, would give you compounding results. So whether you kind of building a product, build it in public. If you have a job, the way you build in public is, of course, you don't take the projects you have your job and just like say, hey, this is what you're doing. And like, this is not allowed. But you can kind of blog about things that you're learning. That could be like a variant of like building in public. That'll help you kind of clarify your thinking. It'll kind of help you connect with incredible kind of community members. You'll get feedback. It is very jarring when you kind of start it. Like, hey, it's like anxiety, like, what do people say? I'm building in public. But if you focus more on the problem that you're solving, and then you kind of share how you're solving those problems and keep repeating that, you'd continue to kind of evolve faster than most people would. I think there's like a classic thing is like, do what you say what you'll do, and then do what you said. There's like a frame of like another frame here is like figure out what you want to kind of problems you to solve, and then show people how you solve those problems, and keep doing more and more of those. You'll get more and more opportunities over time. It'll start compounding very quickly.
Good advice. If I put again the other lens, or you mentioned earlier the data leader hat on, obviously strong competition today in the market for very strong data talent, AI talent. Any advice for maybe competing, hiring managers, or how you're thinking about kind of building your talent, developing your talent in the world?
Hiring people who are strong technically has never been kind of more truer. So like in the past would have like what we'll call like 10x engineers, right? With AI, they're now like 100x more impactful. So the dispersion in the impact that a particular individual could have is very different. i.e. what that means for you as like a leader is to make sure that you're spending all of your time to uncover those people and make sure that they are able to like unleash. And the more of them you can unleash, the better off you are, whether that's through grooming like a current crop and like helping they kind of grow into from like 10x to 100x, or kind of finding the new one. So it's kind of, the distribution isn't normal distribution anymore. It's a bimodal distribution. And like the key is go find those more 100x people in your team. The more of them that you have in your team, the better off you will be. You build better products. You kind of, your team would just be like differentiated compared to others. So I'm going to start to think less about the normal distribution of like the talent strategy, or shifted my mental model to how can I like focus on this kind of bimodality, and then just heavily focus on the folks that can be that 100x folks in your team, because that'll be what like differentiates. That's how I've essentially changed my talent strategy on top. For like one very technical example is that we don't, in our kind of hiring now, we would ask this question: where is the person in the top quartile and the level that we are hiring? Should not, we don't hire them, at least for my team. At Amazon,
that's a high bar.
It's a high bar. At Amazon, the thing I learned was that the person that we hire has to be above median. So the way they would frame it, and there's something I picked up at Amazon, which was the person that you hire is that person 50% better than your existing team. So as you keep doing that over and over again, you kind of continue to raise the bar for your team. Now, like I've taken that at the next level. It's like, okay, median isn't enough. Let's do quartiles, top quartile. Like, do we have signals that this person is top quartile? Because then their probability of becoming a 100x person is even higher. So our kind of bar for like talent has gone up. And that's like a local practice I do for my team. I think a lot of other teams at Opendoor also have a fairly high bar. But that's like a very tactical thing that has shaped my talent strategy philosophy over time.
Appreciate you sharing that. That's obviously a good advice. Obviously, again, strong competition today in the market. So I think part of it is the problem set that you're solving and the type of culture that your team has in order to attract those type of folks. And obviously, again, continuous development of those folks as they are on your team, obviously super critical. But I think, raising the bar and continuously getting this 10 or 100x engineers is today, I think, make or break of good, strong teams. Paras, I really enjoyed the conversation today. Before we wrap, if folks want to follow you, blog, newsletter, career advice, where should they go?
I am fairly active on like LinkedIn. Just kind of use my first name, last name, Paras Doshi. You'll kind of find me. There I have a newsletter if you want to kind of check it out. And then I have a blog, insightextractable.com. Check that out as well. But yeah, fairly easy to find online. Fully involved in the community. So things that you want to ask me, feel free to connect.
Amazing. And we'll make sure to have those links in the episode summary. So Paras, thanks so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed the conversation. A lot of good insights and advice. Let's keep in touch, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And this is a really great platform. So I appreciate you investing on behalf of the data community.
Amazing. Thanks, Paras.